That's right. You're listening to another episode of the Co-Main Event Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for the last 13 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, we're rolling in off Memorial Day weekend. I see that over on the Patreon page, you got the comment thread up for tomorrow's live chat, which I feel like is impressive because normally we almost always screw up the schedule on a holiday week because if we're not recording the CME, if we're having a day off, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. That is how I know the days of the week is which version of the CME we are recording that day.
So we managed to keep up on it this week.
We've found ourselves in a little bit of an ain't shit going on cycle.
A little bit.
In MMA. There literally was not shit going on last weekend. This weekend, there is some shit going on.
See, you got this fight night with Aaron Blanchfield and Macy Barber. Women's flyweight contender fight as the main event. This one's at the Apex, so you know you're dealing with the lowest rung of UFC programming. I like on the poster for this event, which why are you still making posters for the fight night?
Well, in fairness, they're not putting a whole lot of effort into most of these, you know?
No, they're not. First of all, the way that we have split up the two fighters' names down the middle is very awkward. It says Blanchfield versus Barber.
Yeah.
And then my favorite part, though, is at the bottom where it tells you one of them is ranked number 3 and one of them is ranked number 4. It has their records 13-2 and 14-2, as though us, the viewing public, this always critical MMA viewing public is going to look at that and be like, wow, 14-2.
No, what that is them saying, we don't believe you know who these people are. We feel like we got to do a little something extra to try to tell you why they're important and why they matter, because we do not trust you, the viewer, to really have a good sense of who these people are. I mean, and you look at the rest of this fight card, you have Mateusz Gamrot on here in the co-main event against Ludwig Klein. But after that, Chad, you got Dustin Jacoby, Bruno Lopez, Ramiz Brahimaj versus Billy Ray Goff, which come on.
Yeah, I had his first album. I had his album when I was in high school.
Some really problematic political views became known later on. Zachary Reese versus Dusko Todorovic, and then a prelim card where you're just like, yep, that's a prelim card from a UFC Apex event. So that's about the level of effort we're putting in before we really ramp it up to take the shit on the road for Morab and Sean O'Malley in Newark next weekend.
Yeah, UFC, what is it, 317? 316.
Are we flying those guys into Newark International? Because I hear they've been having some problems over there. I'd hate for this to be the event where we lose a UFC champion due to midair collusion, especially because it seems predictable that might be a concern here.
I assume we're flying into New York City and then we're bussing. That we're loading up the rented luxury coach buses and we're driving over.
I mean, can't you just see some shit where it's just like the UFC books everybody flying into Newark? Dana White gonna land at LaGuardia. He gonna land at JFK. You're not messing around with that shit.
Yeah, I doubt he would land at LaGuardia. I've been there before.
I love LaGuardia. It's
really
awesome. Yeah, it's great.
I guess. Well, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Morab's toe? Do you want to talk about what gradient of shit this fight night event is this weekend?
I think we've said enough about the fight night. Morab, Chad, has an injured toe, as you mentioned, but he's not exactly going to put it in Conor McGregor's face, but he is going to point out he got 9 other toes.
Yeah, he's actually offering to cut this one off.
That's right.
If it becomes an issue.
Which Ain't that just some Morab shit to
If
cheerfully offer to cut off one of his toes?
I mean, there are multiple MMA fighters that I would not be surprised if they went ahead and pulled a Ronnie Lott and had one of their digits amputated so they could continue in the competition. There's, a handful of MMA fighters that I would believe that they would do that. Morab is very high on the list.
He is, and he would he would have a good attitude about it the entire time. He would he'd have a smile on his face, smoking and joking, and then look down and be like, "Oh, we're done. All right, let me get out there. Tape it up, and let's get out there." Here's my question to you, Chad. You're Sean O'Malley. You're going into this fight, this rematch against Morab, kind of a make or break fight for you, at least as far as your dreams of being once again the UFC bantamweight champion are concerned. You foot stomping that man?
Well, yeah, 100%. I'm calling up Chris Lieben right now, getting him to fly in, put me through a foot stomp camp.
I mean, I think you could get the foot stomp camp just by watching a couple Team Quest guys fight in like the early 2000s. I don't know if you need to get them to break down the finer points of the technique. I think you pretty much got it once you see it.
What if there are some wrinkles that you might not understand unless you learn from the best?
Such as?
Angle of attack. Maybe you do a little twist on the way down. I don't know. I'm not the expert. That's what I'm saying. You got to call in Chris Lieben, one of those guys from Gresham from the early 2000s. They'll teach you. They'll teach you the proper way to stomp a foot.
I mean, those guys did know. They know from foot stomps. We found that out. I guess if I'm thinking about it from Sean O'Malley's perspective, I'm like, you need every edge you can get against Morab. If I find out his toes hurt, if he's gonna do me the favor of 2 weeks before the fight telling me his toes hurt, all right, we'll work with that.
He broke it on the skull of a training partner, we're led to believe, right? Cameron Sandoval. Well, they're both getting ready for their fights. Morab threw a high kick. Might have broke his toe against Sandoval's skull. And of course, if you're Morab, you immediately put that on social media.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. I mean, I know Morab is he's living out loud, you might say, when it comes to his social media approach. He gonna just show us everything that's going on over there in Morab world. And we have had cause before to wonder to what extent that's a great idea. This is one of those where I'd just be like, why? Why give it to him? Why give him this information? Why give him a reason to foot stomp you? You probably wouldn't gonna think of it before. Just anything like that. Like, why let us know?
I mean, I feel like what your question presupposes is that there is some kind of rhyme, reason, psychology, logic that goes into what Morab Dvalishvili puts on social media, when it is in fact probably whatever passes in front of his face can be filmed and put on social media.
Now we saw one of these recent videos. The dude who plays Sean O'Malley in his videos is still getting work. He's fucking like a regular on ER at this point, where it's just, he thought he signed up and was gonna do, well, I'll do 1 or 2 appearances in a video for this guy. It'll be just for laughs, all that kind of stuff. And here we are. We're in season 13 of this long running shit, and it's no signs of it stopping anytime soon.
I mean, if your thing is that you look like Sean O'Malley, it's good work if you can get it, I would think.
I mean, what if you want to change up your look?
You think that guy's worried about getting typecast?
Yeah, you're just like, well, what if I want to do something different facial hair wise? I was thinking about doing something different with my hair, and now I got to think about the extent to which I'm ruining my gig. Morab's gonna come at me. And next thing you know, Morab shows up at the door. You've shaved a goatee, and he's just like, "Oh, brother, what have you done to us?" I had a whole half-baked plan for how we were gonna do this video. One take. We're not doing any reshoots on it. We're doing it in one take, and whatever we get, we get. And now you've ruined it.
All jokes aside, are we worried at all about the toe?
I mean, I guess to the extent that it could affect Morab's ability to shoot in on those takedowns, maybe. I also saw, though, some of Morab's comments on this fight where he was just like, well, the first one, I was trying to get the belt and everything, so I was really just focused on winning the fight. This one, I'm going to show off more of my striking. And I went, uh-oh. Uh-oh, Chad. The guy who grappled his way to an easy win in the first fight is like, all right, I don't need to do it this time. This time, I can get fancy. This time, I can show you how far I've progressed in other areas of my game. And I just kind of went, should you, though? Should you be doing that?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a great plan.
Because if I'm Sean O'Malley and I hear Morab has an injured toe, wants to stand and strike with me more, I'm just like, things are kind of looking Shawney. Everything's coming up Sean right now.
Do we believe that, though? I don't know.
Yes, Morab is a silly little guy.
He is an absolute silly little guy. We remember the time Ray Longo said you didn't really even have to game plan when you're getting ready for Morab to have a fight because Morab's just going to go out there and be Morab. I think if I had to guess, we'll just see Morab out there.
Yeah.
Second time.
It's worked being Morab has worked out pretty well for Morab at this point. You have to admit that.
Nothing wrong with it. We haven't seen too many drawbacks yet. Ben, it's the last week of Pledge Month.
Yeah, it is.
Here at the co-main event. In fact, given the Memorial Day holiday, we got less than a week left. So people only have a few days to jump on, join the team over patreon.com, sign up for any one of our handy tiers of patronage, go over there, get the loads of audio and video content that you and I are shoveling out by the heap over there all week. We already told you that's how we keep track of the days of the week, because every damn day some kind of show is coming out over there. People seem to enjoy it. We'd love you if you'd help support the show. Go over there, sign up for any one of our subscriptions. Use the coupon code CME13, that's CME13, when you sign up at patreon.com/co-main event. Get 50% off either a monthly or annual subscription. If you want to sign up, that means you could pay 50% and not pay again for a year. That's unbelievable savings right there. So go over to patreon.com/co-main event, join the team, use the coupon code CME13. Ben, what are you going to remember most fondly about this Pledge Month?
I think that is when I told people I was going to die.
Yeah, that's probably the standout moment from the month so far.
You know what, though? It's kind of like when MMA fighters do the fake retirement announcement for April Fool's Day, because I didn't exactly hear from a lot of people who seemed concerned. People responded to that one to just various extents, but I didn't hear the concern that I guess I was expecting when I told people that I was going to die.
People were like, you had a good run.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
We know it had to end at some point, brother, but you had a good run.
I didn't feel great about that part. I will say, though, that one of the best reasons to join the team, get on board, and join the incredible CME community is you get access to the whole crew. It's not just us out here. It's you get on the Discord, you get in the comments of the Patreon. It's a real family vibe in there, as evidenced by this weekend when you played a rock show. You got back out there for your first rock show in a good little while.
Yeah.
And I posted the videos of you just absolutely tearing it up on your drum set with your sweet ass little like logo on your drum head that that had been a main focus for you. People, when they saw the video, it seems like people did not expect you to be that good, because there was a lot of responses where people were supportive ahead of time. They were like, all right, yeah, cool. Jad wants to play the rock show. I want to see some video. Like, I got a lot of DMs like that. And then when I posted the actual video, people were like, holy shit, look at him go. And I was like, yeah. Like, I think that they thought like, all right, well, this is a little thing Chad does, like, whatever, good for him. And then they saw that you actually were good at it, and they were pleasantly surprised.
I always love it when people are surprised that I'm good at something.
There was a lot. I got a lot of fire emoji DMs, a lot of like all caps, holy shit kind of reactions. It was a real feel good moment to see the CME community come out in support of Chad Dundas and his drumming.
I guess that's better than them being surprised the other way.
Like, right? I thought he'd be better than this.
Yeah. So I'll take that. I'll take what I can get there. Just a few more days Your coupon code expires on June 1st. If you want to join the team, go over to patreon.com/co-main event. Use that code CME13, save 50%, get 50% off. Thanks to everybody who's gone over there and signed up so far. As you guys know, we are an independent show. The discourse over here remains unfettered. We stay free of the corporate fat cats, but we do rely on the support of our listeners. So head over there. Patreon.com/co-main event. Use the coupon code CME13. Save 50%. Another great way to support the show is to go over to our merchandise shop. We got t-shirts, we got hats, we got hoodies, we got lots more. Stop by and pick up our best-selling Daddest Man on the Planet t-shirts, coffee mugs, while we can keep them in stock. You can get the Dundasso t-shirt or hoodie, get the Bobby Nuck shirt, get the Volcomania shirt. We got it all over at the website, comainevent.com. Click the link at the top of the page that says shop. While you're there, until June 1st, you can save 25% off your order if you use the same code from over on the Patreon page, CME13. That'll get you 25% off over at the CME official merchandise shop. As always, we partner with our guy, Johnny Ashcroft, on the shop. He is a brand and design. He's a designer. He's a brand and design guy from Portland, Oregon. We can't recommend him highly enough for all your design needs. Hit him up at studiosuperconductor.com or on Instagram at Studio Superconductor. Ben Joe Rogan says he doesn't care what kind of lifestyle choices Sean O'Malley has made. He thinks Morab still takes this one.
Okay. Cool, Joe.
I kicked that to you for some response, and you didn't really give me anything.
At this point, with the Joe Rogan stuff, I just kind of feel like, all right, happy for you, man. Happy for whatever you think. Cool. We I guess you'll show up and kind of halfway pretend to care about the pay-per-views unless they're in another country, and then you'll be a jerk about it. Whatever.
Morab Dvalishvili going off as a 3-1 favorite, kind of across the board here.
I mean, that sounds right, doesn't it? Although, are they taking into account that we're not dealing with the lights of the sphere this time around?
That's right. According to silly little guy Sean O'Malley, coach Tim Welch, could have been the flashing lights of the sphere that had Sean O'Malley mesmerized. He fell victim to mesmerism.
Caused you to miss by a fraction of an inch because there was like a giant image of a flickering torch in a Mayan jungle setting up on the screen, and you were distracted by that. The left hook comes up just short. There you go. That settles it.
I don't know if these betting lines are pre-toe injury or post-toe injury, but 3-1 favorite. Morab Dvalishvili over Sean O'Malley in the rematch. All right. You know what we do, like we always do about this time. Let's get into a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
This week, Ben, our first piece of listener mail comes to us from Aljamain Argentum.
Okay.
Subject line reads, "The real reason behind no more champs." The question is, Islam was adamant that he was going to be a double champ and defend both belts. Cue Dana announcing Ilya versus Charles for the vacant belt. Is this just a way for the UFC to get around paying pay-per-view points? He means not allowing single people to hold multiple championships in the UFC. You remember going back, previous to Conor McGregor, this was kind of the UFC's old school line, is that they didn't really want people to be champions in two different divisions. And then Conor McGregor came along. They thought he was special enough to let him go try to do it. Lo and behold, he pulls it off. At this point, fast forward a handful of years, and it's almost cliche to have someone go out there and become a double champ, win a title in two different weight classes.
It's like the first thing everybody thinks to do when they win a title.
Yeah, they immediately announce that they're going for two. You know what? You can never discount the pettiness of the UFC. And if it turned out that this policy had something to do with not having to pay people pay-per-view points, on title defenses in 2 different weight classes, I guess I wouldn't be that surprised. But I think more likely, considering what we've had with happen to the schedule over the last 10 years or so, what you really don't want is one person holding 2 belts in 2 different divisions, because you need both of those belts to be active in order to fill up the live event schedule that you have. You want to put gold on the poster. Preferably, you want to put 2 belts on the poster for the pay-per-views. They like to double up with the main event and co-main event. You don't want Islam Makhachev or anybody else hogging all the gold, because that guy can only fight so much, right? You want to have all the belts available for a pay-per-view rotation. You don't want a guy going out there defending his lightweight belt and then he's, has to put the welterweight belt on the shelf for 6 months. So I think that's probably more the chief reason behind not wanting to have people have 2 titles at the same time.
Yeah, I think so too. Just we've seen one person actually defend 2 titles at the same time, and it was Amanda Nunes. And it helped that one of the titles she had, one of the divisions she had a title in, was barely in existence at the time and not really in existence anymore in the UFC. So like they were just keeping women's featherweight around because she had a belt there. And so it was like every once in a while she could, if we got somebody, sure, she can go up there and defend against that person. Nobody else has really actually actively done it. I think that is the main reason. I do think it's an interesting contract question, isn't it? About if you're a lightweight champ and you say, I'm going to go up to welterweight, and they say, well, all right, that means you got to give up the lightweight title, which means your welterweight fight, you'll be back to whatever your pre-championship pay was, no points on the pay-per-view, none of that stuff. And that would, I would think, dissuade some people if that's what they were saying to him. But also it makes me think about when Randy Couture tried to resign as UFC heavyweight champion so that he could go fight Fedor, right? Because it was just, it's like, they were like, no, you can't do that. Especially because it was like, there was that champions clause in the contract. And he was basically being like, all right, I'm not champion anymore. And they were like, no, it doesn't work that way. And yet they can take the title away from you whenever they want. If you could just go to a different weight class and be like, all right, I'm leaving that belt behind. Is that a loophole to get you out of any champions clause? Like, it is kind of interesting. And like, if you told me the UFC would insist on having it both ways, I would believe that. Absolutely. Just like you, I have no problem believing that if the UFC saw an opportunity to save even a little bit of money and stiff a popular champion, they would also do that. But I think you're right that, honestly, I think fans are kind of getting sick of the champ shit just because we've seen it. It feels so cliche when guys do it now. It's just sort of like, if there's a fight that really makes sense, like the Ilya versus Islam one, then sure. If you also feel like you physically can't stay in that one weight class and you're moving up full time regardless of what happens, then sure. But it's like, here we had that opportunity to make Ilya versus Islam. We're not doing it. And we're just doing other champ shit that is way less interesting to everybody.
It just doesn't seem to matter, right? I don't know that we're sick of it because it's cliche, but I don't even know if it factors into our thinking anymore. Like Islam Makhachev, for example, going up to welterweight to fight Jack Della Maddalena for the title. If he wins, it's still worth to me as much as it would be if he had both belts, right? He still went up a weight class and won. Just because he's not standing on the cage with 2 belts in his hand doesn't diminish that accomplishment anymore. For me, if it turned out he was the double champ at the same time, it wouldn't add anything to it. I think it's just anymore meaningless. It was cool for a while, Conor McGregor certainly understood the moment at the time, made sure everybody got the photos of him with both belts, but you had diminishing returns ever since then. At this point, it doesn't matter, man. If Islam Makhachev becomes welterweight champ, that's still as great an accomplishment in my mind as if he simultaneously had the lightweight title.
Yeah.
Next question this week comes to us from the dreaded Dirk. That sounds scary.
Uh-oh.
Writes, can you guys please explain to me how Nate Diaz is still in our lives? Not like I hate him or anything, but I'm amazed at his ability to hang around and continue to be a capital G guy who people want to put on TV and get into beefs with, since he hasn't been relevant in any fight sport for years now. Am I missing something? Wow, that's harsh indictment. Harsh indictment of Nate Diaz.
I mean, it does seem like, especially recently, you see him, he's everywhere. He's in the Russian reality show where people are getting jumped and he's storming out. People still sometimes want to call Nate Diaz out. He seems like he keeps showing up on like various podcasts and things. Like it seems like MMA websites are part of this, because Nate Diaz will go on some podcast. He'll say something. I mean, he's good with a quip. The guy is good with a quip, better than his brother was when it comes to both frequency and willingness on the quips. And people must care about him because MMA websites will keep mining those for material, posted on the website. People are like, oh, Nate Diaz has something funny to say about why he's throwing water bottles at people all the time. Let me click on that. Let me get it. Like, we do still care about Nate Diaz. Like, he captured our imaginations and our attention somehow. It is a little bit surprising, I guess, how resilient that has been. And honestly, though, maybe it's a lesson that it's not necessarily about winning them all. That's not the thing. Like, fucking Nasruddin Imavov is out there winning a bunch of fights. You wouldn't know if he walked in this room right now, top ranked dude in the division. And yet Nate Diaz, people are like, oh, Nate Diaz said something. Let me see what he said. Like, that's just how MMA works, regardless of how we might want it to work.
You know what? For the sake of Nasruddin Imavov, I hope that he becomes the most recognizable champion in the history of the sport. just because on this show, in recent memory, when we're reaching for a guy who is good but completely nondescript, Nasruddin Imavov is the guy who immediately comes to mind. And now I'm starting to feel bad for him.
Didn't we do this once with Santiago Ponzinibbio because of the fight?
We tried to make fun of Santiago Ponzinibbio in defense of us back before anyone really knew who he was. And this was back in the Reebok Fight Kit era when they first debuted the idea of the like personalized fight kit. Like, you could buy the fight kit of a fighter that you liked, and allegedly that money would go to them. Remember this? That fighters would profit off the sales of their own personalized merchandise. And so we were joking about it, and we were like, who would ever want to buy a fight kit for Santiago Ponzinibbio? Basically because the name was funny at the time.
Long name.
Turned out
fight kit.
Turned out he became a pretty good fighter.
I mean, in fairness, we were never saying he wouldn't be a good fighter. I mean, Nasruddin Imavov, clearly good fighter.
I just hope he becomes very famous.
I don't think he's going to become the most popular fighter in the sport.
The thing about Nate Diaz is, as you alluded to this a little bit, but like, as we say in the journalism industry, he's good copy.
Yeah.
Nate Diaz is always going to give you some good copy. And if you're that kind of guy in this sport, especially right now, when it feels like we are scrounging around for people to write about, that people that are going to get clicks, as you said, that are recognizable to the audience, that people want to read about, Nate Diaz is as good as anyone else that you got on the landscape right now. And the fact is, kind of the best thing you can have going for you in this sport, I am convinced at this point, is to be organically interesting.
Yeah.
In the way that both of the Diaz brothers have always been. As you said, it's probably better than total wins and losses at the end of the day, as long as you were able to capture and keep our attention for a long period of time. Obviously, it's better to win the fights than lose.
You got to win some. You got to win a couple big ones. Because it's like, if you, before that, Nate Diaz, before he beat Conor McGregor and had that moment, he was kind of Nick's little brother,
Yeah.
And like, we knew him, but he came with the Diaz brother reputation that his brother had kind of blazed the trail for him. And so it was like, what we felt like we knew about him was a result of that we got to know his brother first. And he was the kind of guy, he'd win some, he'd lose some, that kind of thing. But when he beat Conor McGregor, then he got that spotlight and people were like, okay, wait, this dude is actually rad.
Yeah. And if you have that, whatever it is, I guess it's the X factor. If you have that, if you can inspire that organic interest seemingly without trying too hard, it's one of the better things you can have going for you in this sport. It's interesting to me, at least, that you can kind of never predict it.
Yeah.
You can take Colby Covington, for example, probably the most organically disinteresting person on the UFC roster, makes this decision. Okay, I'm going to be a heel now. I'm going to go full on with all my stuff that I'm going to do, and people won't be able to ignore me. I'll become a bigger star. And I guess it worked for a while, right? But we kind of knew the whole time it was a put on, regardless of whether or not it might be stuff Colby Covington actually believes. We knew that it was an act of sorts. And now, the guy's lost a few fights. It's like nobody cares about him.
Nobody misses him.
And I think part of that is because of the gimmick that he chose was so distasteful to a lot of people that we are quick to forget him, but also it was fake, and you could tell it was fake.
Yeah, he wasn't good at it.
He was putting on airs, whereas, a guy's balls is hot, and all of a sudden, Derek Lewis probably he might have a lifetime ticket in the UFC for all we know, right? His balls is hot.
Yeah, don't that just say it all about this sport?
So for a guy like the Diaz brothers, they have this kind of staying power that supersedes maybe how good they have been or how relevant they have been in the sport. It probably doesn't hurt that you go over there to Russia and get in a brawl on day one.
See, I wondered this afterwards because it's like they left after that, right? Like Nate Diaz and his whole team of guys, they walked out of this reality show. They left. Now, were they paid up front? Were they being paid by the day? Like, how did that part work? Because I don't know, who exactly is responsible for signing the checks on this Russian tough knockoff reality show. But if you're Nate Diaz, did you pocket the money and just be like, peace? Did you have a clause in your contract that if a massive brawl breaks out, I can leave? Because I can't imagine those people agreeing to that, knowing what kind of shows they tend to put on.
I mean, if you're Nate Diaz and you already got the money, this is a best case scenario.
Yeah.
Right? You show up, seemingly you're at this weird fighter house for, I'm just gonna guess, 2 hours, something like that, and a big brawl jumps off, and you peace out. Knowing everything that we know about the Diaz brothers, you would think that they would get the money before they showed up. You'd think that would be part of their demands, and if that happened, that's about as good as you can ask for.
What is Jon Jones doing there now is my question, because it's like it was supposed to be Jon Jones versus Nate Diaz as coaches. And if Nate Diaz and his whole crew just left and Jon Jones seems to have been like, all right, everybody, let's get in the pool. What are we doing? Are we still doing the show? Are we scrambling to get somebody at the last minute? Like, I never thought I would give a damn about what the hell is going on with a Russian tough knockoff, because especially at this point, I do not care about the actual tough, but I am legitimately curious now to know what the hell they're doing.
I mean, Jon Jones, if he gets in a tight spot, he'll just jump on the back of a moped and ride on off.
Last we'll see of him.
Next question this week comes to us from Portland Mike, who writes, I can't be the only one who saw Vitor Belfort was getting inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame and immediately thought, oh boy, I bet Bisping is big mad. Sounds like yes, but also no. Here's a quote from Bisping. Was he a massive cheater? Of course. Did he take a lot of steroids? Of course. Were there a lot of people doing that at the same time? Absolutely there was. I get it. I lost an eye because of this guy. He can stick his Hall of Fame up his ass, but he does deserve it. You can't deny what he did inside the octagon. You just can't deny it. If that's not a Hall of Fame career, I don't know what is. Whether you like it or not, he deserves it. And then Portland Mike follows up by just saying, discourse?
Yeah, I don't know. I wrote something about this earlier. Did you see this? Bisping talking to Mike Bad to the Bone? This is where this quote comes from.
I did not, but in my mind's eye, I can imagine it.
Yeah.
I feel like I know exactly how Michael Bisping said this.
He said that at when they were putting together the video package for Vitor, getting Paul Felder, getting kind of who we had on hand to say some nice stuff about Vitor to play in the arena on that video package. And then they said something to Michael Bisping where we're like, we won't ask you to do it for obvious reasons. And he said that he was like, you know what? No, I'll do it. Fuck it. Like at this point, but I think that Michael Bisping, more than anybody, has reason to feel some type of way.
Yeah.
About not only about Vitor, that specific guy, but also about the TRT era in general, because arguably no one was more harmed by it than Bisping. He He lost that devastating knockout to Dan Henderson at UFC 100, where he got just like posterized in a way that would follow him basically until he managed to replace that part of his career with the image of him winning a UFC title. He got kicked in the head by Vitor in a way that cost him an eye, pretty significant. And then he had that fight against Chael. He lost that one too. And, it really kind of knocked back his career, but also took a physical toll on him because he's fighting all these dudes who are all on TRT at the time, which, when you look back, I realized this when I was trying to write this column on it, how trying to explain the TRT era to people who are kind of newer to the sport, even some people who were like came in during the pandemic, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. You have to go back and explain to people so there was a time when you could do steroids in the UFC. Yes, you could. If you got a doctor's note, and it could be from the shadiest fucking doctor you could find. A guy who's going to show up in a t-shirt to the athletic commission hearing. If you got a note from that guy being like, oh, this poor bastard has abnormally low naturally testosterone levels, which is ridiculous because you're a pro fighter and have been for years, you can get permission to do synthetic testosterone, and other people who do not have permission to do it have to get in there and fight you. And it was really Vitor just going out of his way to fail the eye test portion of it. Like everybody else was at least trying to kind of be a little bit more discreet about it, where it's
he overplayed his hand.
Yeah, like Dan Henderson was just like, I won't talk about it. If people ask me about it, I won't make a big deal about it. I'll just be like, yeah, that's my doctor said I needed it, and then he'll move on. Chael's approach was, I need it or I'll literally die. And we were like, oh, LOL. But
do you remember when Chael Sonnen went to that athletic commission meeting and basically said that he was covered under the American with Disabilities Act, and that he told some story about how he hadn't gone through puberty until his 20s and was like suffered from this rare disorder and he needed to take testosterone and all this stuff? Remember when he did that?
Of course I remember.
That is a thing that happened in this sport.
And so it was like people were getting this permission to use steroids, like synthetic testosterone, officially classified as a steroid by like all the athletic commissions and the WADA code, all that kind of stuff. People were getting permission to do it. Only some people though. And the UFC though, kind of sensing that this thing was going to snowball out of control, started telling people a little more behind the scenes, okay, that's it though. Don't keep coming in here with these prescriptions. And people did, and they got mad about it. And they realized it's a bad look, but Vitor was the one who really fucked it up for everybody because he looked absurd. He was just, we've seen Vitor in a few different bodies, like when he was a teenager, and then he got this kind of like bloated. We all knew what was going on, especially when you're going over there and fighting Pride and stuff. He failed a drug test at one point, but then he shows up in his mid-30s fucking jacked, Chad. Just
and suddenly beating people by head kick.
Yeah.
Multiple wins by head kick, something he had really never done before.
Pulling off all these highlight reel moves, and he is just muscular and shredded and looks out of his mind on steroids. And that's when it kind of forced everybody's hand, honestly, because they were just like, all right, this is ridiculous. Plus, we're putting him in these big fights. He's looking like he's building up to a middleweight title fight, but the UFC was like, we're not sure we can have him fight anywhere outside of Brazil. Remember, they kept having to pretend like, oh, no, it's just for local TV, Globo on TV in Brazil. They want Vitor Belfort. That's why he keeps fighting over and over again in Brazil, and we don't try to bring him to Las Vegas, where he'd have to get a TUE to use his synthetic testosterone from the local commission. And then when the TRT era was over, he showed back up to fight Chris Weidman after a little time off, and he looked like a different person. Like his body just looked completely different after TRT was done. And so it was like, it really just drove home the point. Like, we were letting this guy juice up and kick people in the head. And which, a lot of people are going to be like, good, I want to see fighters all juiced up. They weren't letting the other guys juice up, though, is the thing. Bisping had to go in there clean, or, at least like risk getting caught and dealing with the consequences if he decided to do it. And he lost a goddamn eye. And so it's like, that part especially, I think, drove home the point for a lot of us that this is not just hitting baseballs. It's not consequence-free fun. Because you know how those steroid eras are. We do the same thing in baseball. You give us a little time to think about it afterwards, and we'll be like, actually, it was rad. We had a great time. Like, we kind of missed this shit. Bring it back. But this one, it's like Michael Bisping, especially still being around, still being in the sport, occasionally going on somebody's podcast and taking his eye out. Like, he's a reminder of, oh, yeah, this is some shit that happened. Now, obviously, that could have happened in a lot of, like, getting kicked in the head is getting kicked in the head. The guy doesn't need to be on steroids for that to be bad for you. But the fact that it did happen in that fight, you're like, okay, that is a thing that really reminds you of what we were really doing out there. And so, honestly, I think Bisping's response is kind of perfectly Bisping in that he's going to give you your credit. You know, he's not going to completely discount the guy. He's going to make sure he calls you a cheater, but he's also going to be like, a lot of people were cheating back then. And then he's kind of going to like talk his way through it, where he's just sort of like, he does deserve this honor. He can stick it up his ass. It's just like, honestly, he's being kind of cooler about it than I would be, I think, in his situation. But like, it does remind you, like, Vitor Belfort going into the UFC Hall of Fame, you know, he lived through a bunch of different eras of MMA and the UFC,
and was like the poster boy for almost all of them.
Yeah. And honestly, when you go back and you look, and the thing people say now is like, especially, and Bisping was saying it here, where he was like, he's the closest thing we had to a 3-division champion. He almost became a 3-division champion. I mean, he got trucked by Chris Weidman when he had to get off the juice to stop him from becoming a 3-division champion. Got kicked in the face by Anderson Silva. But they're like, okay, he was a 2-division champion. And you're like, honestly, the 2 championships he won are some of the less impressive aspects of his career when you actually look at the circumstances.
Yeah.
Because the first, it's like, okay, he becomes heavyweight champ like in the late 90s, when you just show up and win a tournament, and, you know, you're fighting guys in some cases off the bar stool or out of the strip mall karate studio. And he was good. Like, he was beating those guys' ass, and he was like 19. So that is still impressive. And then the light heavyweight title, he had a cup of coffee with it after he grazed Randy Couture's eyeball with a glove. Like, that kind of shit where you're just like, all right, those are not even the most impressive things he did. Like, being around from 1997, you know, in the old school days of MMA, before it was even called MMA, like in the UFC, and then still being around when the UFC was on Fox, like that right there, and being in title contention when the UFC was on Fox, like you spanned this entire time period with it and been a top guy more or less the entire time. That's more impressive than those 2 individual titles, I think.
Yeah, he is. I agree with Bisping that he is Hall of Fame worthy for a lot of different reasons, and many of those reasons will probably not be discussed in and around his Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah.
Next question this week comes to us from Nathan Morris, who writes, now that we've all decided together, I hope, to ignore Jon Jones's trifling ass until he signs to fight. What have you been doing with all your freed up time? Me, I've been getting really into ham radio. It's cool. My best wishes to Tom Aspinall and all, but I am all the way done with this bullshit. How about you guys? Nathan, over. Wow. Nathan really sticking to the gimmick there till the end. I love it.
How can you not be kind of over this bullshit now, right? Like, if they announced it today, if they were like Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, November, MSG, there'd be a part of me that would somehow almost get madder because of what they put us through. They put Tom through. I'd just be like, oh, fuck off. And there'd also be a part of me being like, I don't believe you. You know, like, it's just, you've made us, you've soured us on the whole thing by just putting us through this shit. And I feel like, it's like, yeah, how many people called for us to just end any talk of it on last week's live chat, be like, don't talk about it again until there's a fight, and if not, then, or until Jon Jones is stripped. That's kind of, I think, where the public mood is now, is just like, fuck this, we're so tired of it, let's move on.
And Tom Aspinall is out here taking the piss. Did you see this? He tweeted or put on Instagram that he would have some heavyweight news coming up soon, and then he just kept replying to it with how many he'd be like, I'm fighting for my 173rd interim title, kind of a thing. He's taking the piss.
Well, don't you think he probably feels like, I got to do something to look like I'm in on the joke or part of the joke. Otherwise, like you don't want to become the Michael Chandler here, where everybody
No, you
feels
don't.
bad for you, but also like pities you. Like, you don't want pity at that. You want to feel like you're at least directing the narrative at least a little bit.
Last question this week comes to us from Eddie Johnson, who writes, subject line, wait, what? Ciryl Gane is in a Netflix movie? Hashtag would watch. And then he includes the YouTube link to this trailer for a French language movie called KO, where, Ben, I'd not heard of this before we got this email. So thanks to Eddie for sending it in. Not only is Ciryl Gane in this movie, he appears to be the star.
Yeah.
Like, this is a Ciryl Gane vehicle.
Well, you know what? I mean, obviously, the version that Eddie sent to us is the dubbed English version, so it's hard to tell anything about his acting chops.
Yeah, that is
from
that
that.
is the only bummer, was that we can't. It's not actually Ciryl Gane's voice on the English version trailer that we watched.
But he looks the part.
He does. Yeah.
Like, if you just watch this trailer, you would not know that this is a athlete who is not an actor, who doesn't have any acting experience. Like, just watching the trailer, he looks like he belongs in an action movie. He looks like fucking Jack Reacher out there, honestly. Like, he's just towering over people with his shredded ass physique and beating people up in nightclubs and shit like that, and clotheslining people off motorcycles. Like, it. You look at it and you're just like, yeah, no, this guy looks like a legit French movie action star.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. He definitely does. It is a bummer that we don't get a real gauge on how he's delivering the lines, but maybe that's not the most important thing in the world. I will say, from what I could divine about the plot to this movie, it appears to be about a guy, Ciryl Gane, who perhaps has a dark past, has a haunted past, in that he killed someone else in an MMA fight.
Yeah.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. But then the guy that he killed had a daughter who gets in trouble, and Ciryl Gane has to save her from some manner of peril. Which,
yeah,
it's not the most original action movie starring an MMA fighter idea I've ever heard, but
there's only like 3 ideas that people ever have for any kind of MMA fighter movie,
What are they?
One is washed up fighter gets one last shot at the big time. The other is like young fighter new to the game, tutored by older fighter with a dark past. Isn't even Never Back Down, isn't like the coach played by Jaimin Hunsu in the Never Back Down, isn't he also like a guy where he killed somebody in a fight and he doesn't want to talk about it, but eventually he's going to talk about it?
Isn't that kind of the deal with the Gyllenhaal character in Roadhouse?
There you go. It's exactly the deal.
So they would have us believe, the movies would have us believe motherfuckers be getting killed constantly.
Yeah.
In these cage fights, and then the guy who does it is just, he's forced to live with the memory of it.
I want one of these where the backstory is that this guy killed somebody in a cage fight, but it's not that big a deal because it happens all the time, apparently. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna have an MMA career, at some point you will either die or kill someone. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, and then you are forced to help their child out of a tough spot with the Russian mob or whatever it might be.
We've all been there.
I'd watch this. We gonna watch this? Eddie says hashtag would watch, and
all right, but I'm gonna watch the French subtitled version. I'm not watching a dubbed version. This is bullshit.
Well, yeah, I would want to watch the French language version if we could get our hands on it.
I mean, you ought to think, right? Like, you go to Netflix, they give you language options and whatnot on Netflix.
Yeah, it's probably on there. Probably do it.
Also, he got hair. Ciryl Gane rolling up in this thing with hair.
I did not notice. Do you think that's his real hair? Or do you think we fitted him with a wig?
No, it wasn't that much hair.
You don't think KO had the effects budget to give Ciryl Gane some hair? Is that CGI hair? Is that what we're dealing with here?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe if it's in the flashback scenes where he's got hair. I don't know if he has hair in every scene, but there's at least 1-2 scenes where you're like, Ciryl Gane got a good head of hair.
All right. You learn something new about Ciryl Gane every day. That's going to do it this week for listener mail. If you have a question, comment, or concern that you would like to air to the podcast in future weeks, you know how to do it. You go to the website co-mainevent.com and click the link in the top right-hand corner of the screen that says email the podcast. That'll get you in touch with us. A couple of late-breaking tidbits here as we record that we will get into right after this. Ben, did you see that BJ Penn has been arrested again?
Yes, I did.
So this seemed to happen just as we started recording, maybe a little bit before. But I'm getting kind of tired of seeing a headline about BJ Penn that includes the words "disturbing video."
Yep.
Seems like every time we turn around, there's a disturbing video out there about BJ Penn.
I did not watch the video.
No, come on. I'm well past watching the disturbing video. I don't even want to see the words. I don't even want to see the words disturbing video in the headline. I'm not going to watch said disturbing video at this point.
Yeah, because it's just like I believe you that the video is disturbing. Everything about what's going on with BJ Penn right now seems disturbing. He seems gripped with this delusion that everybody around him has been abducted and replaced as sort of like automaton robots masquerading as family members and friends, all to, I don't know, defraud him somehow. And nothing seems like it can shake him out of this. And it just, like, I don't know where this goes, but it seems like the nature of this delusion makes it so that no one can help him. Yeah. Like, it's going to have to be something so bad where he is locked up against his will in some kind of facility, whether it's prison or a hospital, so that somebody can maybe try to get through to him. Because right now it just seems like we are on a certain kind of trajectory and it goes nowhere good.
Yeah. I also saw while we were recording this, John Nash, the big homie John Nash, has tweeted that a new potential class action suit was filed in Nevada federal court today by Misha Cirkunov versus Zuffa LLC, aka the UFC. It's almost identical to the complaint in the Johnson versus Zuffa case, but it looks to represent the fighters that signed the arbitration agreements / class action waivers and challenged those waivers. Remember this when we had some fighters sign waivers saying that they wouldn't either be part of the class action or have their own class action. Now it seems Misha Cirkunov
was waiving their ability to do any class action ever.
Yeah. Now Misha Cirkunov is going to challenge that in court, it would seem.
This is interesting. I mean, the UFC has succeeded in avoiding ever like hearing from a judgment about any of the shit that it's been doing, right? Like, remember those years ago when Jonathan Snowden did for Bleacher Report, where he got, he went through like just page by page a standard UFC contract, and he got comments from the UFC about, here's why we do it this way, from like people in the legal profession, but also from like a law professor who at some points was like, I think that some of these clauses might violate the anti-slavery clause of the Constitution, essentially, as like forced servitude. Like, there were some real questions where he was like, I'm amazed anybody's signing these. I'm amazed that they are holding up and nobody has managed to challenge them successfully in court. Because it's just like the UFC never lets anybody get that far. And this is the closest we've seen anybody do it. Is to take it this far in that class action lawsuit for years, and then they essentially gets to a point where, all right, this shit is getting serious now, let's write a check to make it go away. They did that, and the stock price went up, which tells you something.
And it really did kind of go away, too. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't hear much about it anymore. You probably didn't hear enough about it as it was happening in MMA circles, but now we don't even think about it anymore. Meanwhile, the UFC continues right along the path of making more and more money, having made minor changes to its overall, still, some would argue, exploitative contracts.
Yeah.
So good business for them, I guess, if you can get it.
Also wanted to share with you a headline I just happened to see. This one over there from the big homies at ShareDog. It says Conor McGregor making bid to buy OnlyFans.
Oh my God. Is this like his run for the Irish presidency?
Yes. Yes.
Is it like everything else that Conor McGregor has done in the last 5 years?
It seems to reference a tweet from Damon Martin where Conor McGregor said on Instagram that he's in talks to potentially buy OnlyFans. The owner is looking with a reported asking price of $1.46 billion. But Conor McGregor, this story notes, has a net worth of over $200 million, which that's not enough.
Yeah. He's going to have to take some loans out.
Can you imagine giving a loan to Conor McGregor right now?
Can you imagine being a loan officer in a bank and have Conor McGregor come in wearing one of his outfits, coked out of his mind, sit down in a chair and tells you he needs a loan so he can buy OnlyFans?
And you're like, well, let me just get the papers drawn up. We should have this done by lunch.
Yeah. You know what? We have an actuary, but I'm not even going to bother to ask. I see this as a sure bet, Mr. McGregor. All right. On that note, that's going to wrap up this week's Co-Main Event podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Like we said before, it's the last week of Pledge Month. This will be the last chance you have to sign up to join the party over at the Patreon page. Use the coupon code CME13 to get 50% off. Again, this offer only applies to people who are not currently members of the Patreon, but use the coupon code CME13 to get 50% off over there. If you do that, we'll talk to you tomorrow on the live chat. If you don't, we'll meet you back here next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate the support. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out.